Actions. Work header. Chapter text. Splash. Marinette and Adrian both jumped as they had their legs splashed. They both turned and immediately identified Aaliyah as the perpetrator by her sly smirk and raised eyebrows. Hate to ruin the moment, but you two are gonna gather an audience if you start kissing in the middle of the pool. Get in the water, losers. Aaliyah. Marinette wailed, aghast. She looked about as shell-shocked and embarrassed as he felt, and he was definitely as red in the face as she was. You're not helping by calling attention to them, Aaliyah. Nino hissed. Remember, Adrian's a model. If people recognize him here, we'll have to cut this date short so he can escape the swarming fans. Thank you, Nino. Adrian said with an awkward chuckle. Ooh, sorry, Adrian. Aaliyah said, wincing. I wasn't thinking. It's okay, I think we're safe, Adrian said, glancing around. Marinette stomped forward into the wave pool and grabbed Aaliyah by the shoulders, scowling accusingly. We were not about to start kissing. She hissed, still blushing. And whose side are you on, anyway? Was this date not supposed to be for getting Adrian to fall for me? Yeah, fall for you, not make out with you. Aaliyah whispered back. We gotta get you two alone together for that. Preferably with a better atmosphere and a soft and cushioned, horizontal piece of furniture. Actions. Kudos. Comments. Text. Hush. While Adrian couldn't hear the exchange between Marinette and Aaliyah, he could guess it had something to do with Alia's and Nino's matchmaking scheme. He hoped, again, that they knew to not take things too far and risk ruining the mood of their outing. Glancing around, he noticed for the first time that there were donut floats interspersed here and there among the waders and lazy swimmers, bobbing up and down on the waves. He hadn't noticed them before because they were see-through except for the black handholds. He located a spare one nearby and started wading towards it. Hey, Marinette, are these free to use while we're here, or do we have to rent them separately? Huh. Oh, those. She turned away from Aaliyah and Nino and followed him. They're free to take, there's a couple of huge racks of them against the walls, and the lifeguards collect them if there are too many left floating around. Cool. He tried to hoist himself up onto it, but it only flipped up onto its edge and deposited him right back down where he'd been standing. He tried again, putting a bit more hop into it. The float wobbled under him and tossed him back into the water with a splash. Marinette was holding her breath, trying not to laugh. Adrian whipped the water out of his bangs, grinning and apparently unfazed by his clumsy failures. Is there an easier way to get into this thing? Adrian asked, grabbing the float again. Actions. Kudos. Comments. Work header. Chapter text. Well, you can try from inside the middle, and just throw your arms over the sides, but if you actually want to sit in it on top of the water, it'll take some practice. Show me how you get into it, Adrian offered, pushing the float over to her. Marinette simply hoisted it over her head, jumping to get her arms over the edges. No, I meant on top of it. Adrian laughed. I could have done that, without jumping. Marinette laughed and pulled the float up over her head and pushed it back to Adrian. I can try to hold it steady for you while you try to get up onto it. Maybe your weight won't matter much since we're in the water. Sure, let's try it. Adrian agreed excitedly. Marinette grasped the float by the handles and walked back toward the shallow end until the water came just up to her waist. Here, she could stand with her back straight and hold the float in place with her arms out straight. She stood firmly with her feet shoulder width apart and then gave Adrian an encouraging nod and smile. Okay, so now you hold on to the handles, I'll hold it still. She said, wrapping her arms around the float. Don't let me knock you over. Adrian warned. I don't want to end up hurting you if I can't keep my balance on this thing. I'll try to let you fall past me into the water, then. Marinette laughed. Don't worry, though, even if you do knock me over, I think the water will keep me from breaking anything. Actions. Let's hope so. Adrian chuckled. He grabbed the handles and made to heave himself up with a little hop, but he leaned too far forward and ended up toppled over. Draped over the float with his feet in the air and face planted into Marinette's boobs. To Adrian's credit, his first internal reaction was the equivalent of a fire alarm going off, because he had hoped to avoid situations like this at all costs. He was spared the need to attempt an escape from the situation by Marinette pushing him back upright by the shoulders. He ended up sitting on his feet with his knees crammed into the float, but he was kind of where he had been trying to end up, and Marinette didn't look like she had just been scarred for life. Boobs. His brain chimed in helpfully. Yes, Marinette has boobs, most women do, but now is not the time to admire them. He scolded himself. You okay? Marinette asked. Am I okay? What about you? Adrian asked, rearranging himself on the float as it wobbled on the water, partially because it gave him an excuse to avert his gaze from Marinette's assets. I'm fine, you didn't hurt me, I promise. Marinette assured him. And, hey, look, you're on the float. After a long and arduous struggle. He joked, finally managing to recline properly on the float. The resulting image was one that Marinette would have loved to add to her ever-growing collection of photos of Adrian, but this was Adrian in real life, and the sight of Adrian's real thing was wreaking havoc on her hormone-addled brain. There were a lot of things she wanted to do to Adrian, especially now that so much of his skin was on display, but the urge to climb onto that float and right into his lap was at the top of the list. Actions. After text. I think I'd rather stay in the water after all, Adrian mused. Do you want this? Oh. No thanks, I'll enjoy the water with you. Marinette said, smiling. Want to head for the deep end? Sure. Adrian followed her as she waded deeper into the wave pool, grinning excitedly as the waves gently buffeted them. It was charming to see him so excited about something most people their age took for granted. Dot and his family was rich enough to give Adrian his own private wave pool if they wanted. You know, this seems even better than swimming in the ocean, Adrian remarked, spreading his arms wide on the surface of the water to maximize contact with the waves. The water's not too cold, there's no sand clouding the water, and you can walk deep enough to swim under the surface without losing sight of the beach. I agree. A public pool could never compare with a beach for the scenery and the ambiance, though, I don't think I could get much artistic inspiration from sitting by the pool. Couldn't agree more. Adrian said, chuckling. Marinette couldn't help but beam back at him. His smile was blinding and contagious. Dot and it made her want things. If I had known I would have such a hard time keeping my head out of the deep end of the gutter around Adrian, I would have suggested we go somewhere else for this double date, really, anywhere else, because on a date anywhere else, he would have been fully clothed, and I wouldn't be able to see his naked torso. Adrian, I swear, I love you for you, not just for how hot you are. Actions. Kudos. Comments. Header. Chapter text. Marinette. Snapping back to the present, she realized Adrian must have caught her spacing out, or worse, blearily staring at him. Oh. Sorry, I was just thinking about the river rapids. I wanna make sure we all get to spend some time on everything here, so. Ah, good point. Adrian nodded thoughtfully. It would be easy to lose track of time in here, but we can always come back later after we've checked out everything else, right? Yeah, exactly. She nodded enthusiastically. Shall we go ask Nino and Aaliyah if they're ready to move on? Sure. Inwardly breathing a sigh of relief, Marinette picked out Aaliyah and Nino among the patrons. Nino was reclined atop his own donut float holding onto the handholds for dear life as Aaliyah spun him around and around. Hey, you guys. She called, wading her way towards them. Are we all ready to move on to the river rapids? Huh. Oh, sure. Aaliyah called back, steadying Nino's float. You want to bring the float? She asked Nino. Yeah. Nino slid off the float into the water and started dragging it behind him as they all headed for the shallow end. Actually, let's bring 2 or 3 of them, he added, turning to Adrian. You can use them to float down the river, it's even cooler than riding the waves in the wave pool. Actions. Kudos. Commenter. Chapter text. Tilda. This is so cool. Adrian cheered. Marinette laughed. The joy in his voice was contagious. Just ahead of Adrian, Aaliyah, in a float, bumped into Nino, in a float. Traffic jam. She hollered. Honk honk. Nino laughed and pushed off the bottom with his feet to pull ahead of Aaliyah, who chased after him and rammed him like they were riding bumper cars. It's a good thing those two can always have fun together without being all flirty and embarrassing, Marinette remarked. At least when they're hanging out with us. Adrian chuckled. Oh, here's one of the detours to the whirlpool. Marinette steered her float into the central section, where the jets pushed the water to flow in a circle. Aaliyah and Nino were already riding the whirlpool, pushing with their feet against the bottom to propel themselves around faster. Oh no. The endlessly flushing toilet has claimed another victim. Aaliyah called out with a laugh. We're all going to the sewers. Adrian and Marinette both laughed. I was going to draw a reference to Charybdis, the giant whirlpool from the Odyssey, but a giant toilet works too, I suppose. Adrian chuckled. Actions. Chapter text. A literary reference sounds a lot cooler than the mental image of people being flushed down a giant toilet. Said Marinette. Aren't those the kind of jokes grade schoolers make? Well, most people our age haven't read the Odyssey. Aaliyah shot back. Geez, I can only imagine how brain-numbingly boring that would be. I haven't read it, I just know my basic classical Greek mythology. Adrian said smugly. I wonder if Hawkmoth knows anything about any ancient mythologies. Aaliyah wondered. You think that might be where he gets some of his inspiration from? For what kinds of supervillains to turn people into? Nah, I'm pretty sure people turn into supervillains that have abilities to change whatever made them upset or punish whoever hurt them, said Adrian. Although, the pharaoh had powers inspired by ancient Egyptian gods, so maybe that counts. No, I totally agree with you, Adrian, Aaliyah said, nodding pensively. I've noticed the pattern almost since the beginning, and it makes sense. If Hawkmoth didn't give you the power you'd want to do whatever you wish you could do, then why make a deal with him and let him turn you evil? I don't think his victims are really given a choice to become evil or not, Marinette pointed out seriously. He turns people evil so that they will make a deal with him. If, say, Chloe stuck gum in my hair and I had to cut it out, I wouldn't make a deal with Hawkmoth just to, I dunno, bury her alive in a giant ball of gum. Aaliyah and Nino both snickered at the visual. Adrian grinned awkwardly, not sure how to feel or react. Actions. Kudos. Comments. Text. My point is, I'd be really mad, and upset, but I wouldn't want to do evil things to Chloe and fight Ladybug and Chat Noir just to punish her. I'd just want her to punished by a teacher or the school for bullying me, and for her to not have her father bail her out just because he's the mayor and he can. Amen to that, Nino said, raising an invisible glass for a toast. Has Chloe ever had to face any kind of punishment? Aaliyah wondered, frowning. I feel like she just gets away with everything, am I wrong? Nope, Marinette said dully. Story of my education. Adrian never enjoyed reminders of Chloe's reputation as a rich, spoiled daddy's girl and a bully. He knew how self-centered and selfish she could be, but that was because he had known her since they were both toddlers, and she had been his only friend for all those years, all the way up until the year he finally started going to school. Once in the school setting, he saw how she treated other people on a regular basis, and those other people were now his friends. It was an uncomfortable situation that to this day he still hadn't figured out how to handle. And in moments like this, he felt he needed to say something. I don't think I'll ever understand why Chloe treats other people the way she does. She could make more friends if she was nicer to everyone. Marinette immediately felt awkward for bringing up Chloe and tried to think of a way to change the subject. Luckily, Aaliyah saved her the struggle. Meh. Why is bullying even a thing at all? She asked. It's her loss. We'll all just have to enjoy the power of friendship without her. Or at least until she grows out of it. Actions. After text. I sure hope she does, said Adrian. I know she could if she really wanted to. I'll believe it only when I see it. Marinette thought. Tilde tilde tilde. After the river rapids and whirlpool, the party decided the next stop would be the hot tubs, with the swimming lanes and diving board being the last stop if they had the time afterward. They only had to wait a couple of minutes before a jacuzzi opened up for the four of them to share. Aaliyah hopped in with a bit too much excitement and leapt right back out with a shriek 2 seconds later with scalded feet. Nino tested the water with a hand first, then started edging his way in at a snail's pace. Adrian sat on the edge and dipped his feet in, while Marinette nervously tested the waters with her toes. By the time she had made it all the way in with the water up to her waist, Adrian was already seated and immersed. Dude, do you turn your water to boiling every time you take a shower? Nino demanded incredulously. Do you take your baths in devil's tears? Huh. No, just, on the warmer side, said Adrian, grinning. Warmer, my ass. Aaliyah grumped. You could boil pasta in this. Well, better get used it. Adrian teased. Or I'll turn into a lonely golden raisin all by myself. Actions. Kudos. Comment or text. 2 raisins. Marinette corrected, giggling. I made it in. Adrian laughed, and Marinette felt like she was glowing on the inside, basking in the radiance of his blinding smile. Bravely, she sat next to him and tried to appear as carefree as possible, but she couldn't keep herself from admiring how effortlessly sexy he looked for the 100th time. It was getting so hard to keep her head out of the gutter that it was downright embarrassing. She had a few mitigating factors in her defense. Firstly, that Adrian was a beautiful human being, and was currently shirtless. Secondly, that she was a teenager and couldn't help that she was buzzing with hormones. And thirdly, that the rated 18 dream she had had about Adrian and or Chat Noir that morning was still rather fresh on her mind. On the other hand, this is not what this date was supposed to be about. This was just supposed to be about having fun with Adrian so that he'll fall even more in love with me. Hard. Now I can't even remember the mission objective. Now how am I supposed to handle this? And things got even more complicated when she brought Chat Noir into the mix, because now she was in love with 2 boys, and she still hadn't figured out what to do about it. You know, it's a bit of a bummer we're all too tall to play in the little kids' pool, Aaliyah said as she kept working her way into the hot tub. She was currently only ankle deep, standing on the ledge meant for sitting on. It might get boring pretty quickly, but I dunno, I'm still kinda jealous of the little wigglers. I'd love to chase the twins around in there. Actions. Kudos. Comment. Marinette watched the little kids scampering around squealing with excitement and giggled. You're right, that's exactly the kind of thing they'd like. She agreed. What little kid doesn't like goofing off in a bunch of fountains and sprinklers? Nino laughed. Even Noel would have gone nuts before he started trying way too hard to be a big kid who's too cool to play with babies. He rolled his eyes, chuckling. Adrian watched and listened to all of the little kids having the time of their lives and wondered if he had ever been allowed to have that much fun and laugh as loudly as he wanted. It felt almost like watching a group of tiny people ascend to a higher state of existence that he could never hope to experience. The closest he ever got to being so utterly carefree and unashamed was when he was Chat Noir, but being a superhero came with its own restrictions. If only Ladybug and I could spend time together whenever we wanted, he thought wistfully. How amazing would it be if we could just meet up and hang out and chat like normal friends, or go out on dates under the stars and just let ourselves be in love without having to worry about secret identities and stuff. Why can't we share everything with each other? We could support each other better that way, all the time, and not feel so weighed down by all these secrets. Something touched his hand under the roiling water. Startled, he looked over and saw Marinette watching him, looking concerned. Adrian. She leaned toward him and spoke softly, as if to help him save face in front of Aaliyah and Nino. Very considerate of her, but all 4 of them were sitting in the same hot tub. There was no way they hadn't noticed Marinette speaking to him. Actions. Kudos. Comments. Chapter text. Oh, sorry. He said hurriedly. Did I space out again? He grinned lightheartedly, but Marinette looked unconvinced. She was positive she hadn't imagined the melancholy expression that had crossed Adrian's face as he watched the little kids playing. Something was bothering him, she just didn't know what. You looked kind of sad for a second, she hedged gently. Are you feeling okay? No, I'm fine. He rushed to assure her, waving a hand. My mind just started wandering, but there's nothing bothering me, I swear. He added for good measure. Somewhat reassured, Marinette's expression relaxed. But she wasn't completely convinced. She remembered her conversation with him over the phone and wondered if some of those worries he had shared with her were distracting him again. We're all sharing this hot tub. Though, it's not just the 2 of us alone together, she thought. I even sat close next to him. not the other way around, and he's not touching me, or anything. And honestly, if he still thinks I mind him being so close to me or touching me or whatever, I might have to give him another talking to about it. Or, I guess once I tell him how I feel about him, he'll realize how much I don't mind him being extremely friendly with me, but even if I felt brave enough, I can't do it here with Aaliyah and Nino with us. Geez, having them come along was supposed to make this date easier, not hold me back. Maybe I should make our next date just the two of us. Actions. Kudos. Comments. I feel like a boiling egg. Aaliyah groaned. She climbed out, catching Marinette and Adrian off guard. Do you want to move on? Adrian asked, but Aaliyah shook her head and made a careless hand movement as if to wave him off. Nah, don't ditch the jacuzzi on my account, you two are enjoying yourselves. I need to use the restroom anyway. Me too. Nino announced, also standing up. We'll meet you two back here, or at the wave pool. Before they could even fathom what had just happened, Adrian and Marinette found themselves alone in the hot tub, watching Nino follow Aaliyah to the restrooms. Did they just? Adrian was too bewildered to even finish his thought, but it was more than enough to confirm what Marinette had already realized. They just ditched us. She blurted. They ditched us, and it was part of their plan. She realized. Aaliyah must have planned this. With Nino. So they could both sneak off and leave me alone with Adrian. What the hell does she expect me to do? I can't confess to him in the middle of a crowded aquatic center, we agreed on this. I didn't think those two were the type to sneak off to go make out somewhere. Adrian said, oblivious to Marinette's internal nervous breakdown. He seemed almost dazed, still staring blankly after their two traitorous best friends. He still doesn't realize what this date was for, bless him, and I don't even know if that's a good thing anymore. Actions. Kudos. I didn't either. Marinette said, deciding purely out of habit to play dumb and wing it. I know they're not into PDA, at least, and where would they even sneak off to? Now that I think about it, though, Adrian mused, even when it's just the two of them hanging out, they would have a hard time finding some place to be alone together for that kind of thing. Nino's got his little brother at home, and Alia's got 3 sisters at her place. Wow, you're right. Marinette laughed, her moment of panic momentarily forgotten. Nora's super protective and the twins do barge into Alia's room when they're bored. With Noel, though, I feel like the last thing he'd want would be to catch his big brother doing lovey-dovey stuff with a girlfriend. Maybe Nino's room is where all that happens. She giggled, and Adrian laughed. Either way, she continued, I'm glad Aaliyah doesn't overshare that stuff with me. I'd rather not hear all the dirty details, even though they make a cute couple. They do. Adrian agreed. I can't help but envy them. He said it offhandedly, but Marinette could help but frown at him. I'm right here, you oblivious buttercup. She raged. If you want your soulmate, then take me and make me yours, already. Actions.